So one of the areas where PSSRU has been particularly active in terms of its research portfolio has been the analysis of social care funding arrangements. That analysis involves understanding the levels of demand for social care services now and in the future, and understanding the levels of resources that will be required to meeting those levels of demand, and finally understanding the sorts of funding arrangements that could be put in place in order to guarantee that the financial resources will be there in order to fund the necessary services. The first challenge that is to be met when looking at this question is to understand, first of all, the numbers of people that will be demanding services in the future. And in order to do that, we have to obviously take into account issues such as demographic patterns. The aging of the population is clearly a very important element in that, but not just that. We need to understand other very important factors, such as, for example, the extent to which, let's say, older people in the future will be more or less dependent than they are now, because we could have more older people, but fitter older people, and as a result, demand could go down. We need to understand other factors such as the availability of the so-called informal care, so the extent to which people might be able to receive support from families and friends, and as a result might not require formal services to provide them with the same level of support. And finally, we need to also understand issues such as the extent to which the price, the cost per unit of services in the future might vary. All those are very important elements when understanding what's the challenge in terms of meeting social care needs in the future. In order to do this analysis, that's in terms of understanding the level of the challenge in terms of the demand for services. Then you need to understand the nature of the services that you will want to provide. How many services would you want to provide to whom? And finally, you need to understand how you will pay for those services. What are the funding arrangements that you'll need to put in place to guarantee that the money will be there to pay for the services that will be required? And that's very important, not just because that determines who will pay for what will be the responsibility to the state and individuals, but also because that affects actually the level of consumption of services, and therefore is very important in terms of understanding whether, as a result of too high charges, for example, there will be unmet need in the future. In order to analyze these questions, we have been developing a range of simulation models, macro simulation models and micro simulation models. And that allows us to understand those questions: what levels of services will be required, what's the level of need, and how can we structure payments, systems, funding arrangements for different groups in society, now and in the future. And by different groups, I mean people in different need groups, and also in terms of different levels of income and wealth. Through those models, we have been able to contribute to policy in a very significant way. We have been involved and contributed analysis to a large number of reviews, both sponsored by government, but also independent reviews. For example, the 1997 Royal Commission on the Funding of Long-Term Care, but ever since a wide range of reviews, the One Less Social Care Review, a number of green and white papers produced by government, and the Deal Not Commission that looked at the funding of care and support. For example, in terms of the Deal Not analysis, our analysis were able to contribute very importantly in terms of understanding the distribution of care costs for through a person's lifetime, and showing, for example, that typically you find that even though there's let's say about a fifth of the older population will not require social care needs, there will be a small minority, about let's say 10% of people over 65, that will require very substantial levels of care, worth perhaps in excess of £100,000 worth of care. And as a result, there is a need to develop some form of social insurance, some form of protection of insurance, so that we can cap the level of financial risk faced by people associated with social care needs. Looking at the future, we expect to, obviously, the aging of the population is not about to stop, so this is going to remain a very important policy question in the foreseeable future, and we hope that our models will be able to contribute further to the development of policy by government.